What's up, family? It is Caden with Urban Finance. I am excited about our conversation today with my brother, Malik Champlain. At this point, I can say he is a regular on this show, but for those of you who may not know him yet, I will have him tell you about himself. To take care of a bit of housekeeping, drop a heart in the comment section, and that will let us know that you are tuned in. As always, smash the like button. That is one of the easiest way that you can support the channel and some of the content that we put out. And if you would like to become a channel member, you can hit the join button on YouTube to do so. I also provide a link that you would be able to use to join us live, either via audio or video, if you want to ask a question or make a comment on the section. But without further ado, let us bring on to the show my brother Malik Champlain.
What's going on? What's going on? How we doing?
None much, man. None much. Living and loving. So if you guys are live with us, just say hi in the comment section so we know that you're watching. So Malik, can you tell the folks a little bit about yourself?
Oh man. Who is Malik Champlain, right? I am a God-fearing man. I'm a husband, right? A father, a son. I'm a go-giver. I'm a
Mm.
thinker. I'm a generational shifter. I'm a revolutionary. I'm a social
Mm.
activist. I'm a survivor. I'm a warrior. I'm a motivator. Malik Champlain, someone who's been broken though, right?
Mm.
Someone who's been counted out. Someone who fell down 7 times but has stood up 8.
Mm.
Someone who's got it out the mud. Um, someone who that has to stop and listen, right?
Mm.
Because I had to stop listening to other people and had to start listening to my calling. I would
Mm.
say I'm someone that chooses every day to conquer my fears and be the man for my family that I wish I had.
Mm.
I would say I'm someone who chooses every day to get on his knees and pray. And I
Mm.
pray that I make my mother proud. I pray that I live
Amen.
up to being the man that my wife believes me to be.
Mm.
Um, I'm a creative, right? I am somebody also who has been created, right? Wonderfully
Mhm.
and beautifully created by a perfect creator. And lastly,
Mm.
I'm my ancestors' wildest dreams.
I love that. I love that, King. And so, can you tell the folks how you got into real estate?
So I would say, really, for me, I kind of fell upon it.
Mm.
I was coaching college basketball. I had went back to Springfield, Massachusetts. I had went to college out there, and I was coaching my at Western New England University where I used to play ball at. And it was my first year actually renting. So prior to that, I lived with some family.
Mhm.
I have a story of like getting on my own feet, but I lived on different campuses as a coach. So
Mhm.
this is my first time renting. So it took a couple months for me to be like, yo, this is kind of for the birds.
Yeah, yeah.
Like my money's not going nowhere. And this is about environment, right? So
Mhm.
one of the things was that a good friend of mine had just closed on the house, and this is how fast things work. He closed on the house in like maybe April, May, and I was
Mhm.
talking to him about it, and he was like, "Yo, I saw a property down the street that looks pretty good too." And I went, saw it, started doing my homework on it, and then we tapped in with a friend of ours who went to college with, who's a real estate agent in the area, and he kind
Mm.
of gave me the game, and he was like, "Yo, we can get this for a good price. It's been on the market for a minute." And I wound up getting my first property for $98,000. It was a 3 bedroom, 1 bath, a partially finished basement, and
Mm.
went looking in May, closed in August. It was quick,
Mm.
and I probably rented for like 10 months, and I was like, "Yo, I'm out. I'm
Yeah,
good," and kept it moving.
that's smooth. That's smooth. And so, I mean, it doesn't seem, and I could be wrong, at that time of your life, working as a coach, you're probably making crazy money. And so, how could you afford the down payment for that initial property?
So I love that you said that because I was right. Like at the time, I was coaching, and like when you're coaching, I wasn't making much. I was teaching actually, still not
Mhm.
making much. So I think combined, I was making like $44,000 a year,
Mm.
right? So with that being said, though, this is the play. The idea is that in America we want people to have houses,
Mhm.
and because of the tax basis and things of that nature, and we'll actually pay you right? And help you get a house if you're broke.
Mm,
And I think that that's incredibly important for us to understand, right? Like that mentality that I went and I wasn't making much money, but because I wasn't, I was qualified for the 9-hour course I took at the housing authority
mm,
where they paid for my down payment, so the
yeah,
down
yeah.
payment assistance.
Oh
But
wow. Yeah.
at the same time, right, I got my first time home buyers. And then what happened was we got into a good program where I actually didn't even use my FHA. We
Mm-hmm.
used a mass housing loan, which wasn't 3.5% down. It was only
Mm-hmm.
3% down.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Nice.
obviously knowing your market. And when you know your market, you know that you can get seller concessions, which means that they can pay your closing costs. So the seller paid our closing costs, down payment assistance was paid. So I walked up into a house for about $1,800.
Nice, nice. And so, so that was your first property, and
Mm-hmm.
then then you moved on to a rental property. Can you talk about what that experience was like, or that transition, or how
Well,
you went about doing it before we talk about like how generally you can do it?
yeah. Well, first I'll give you this. I bought the property 3 streets from the university that I went to,
Hmm.
right? So the reason why I say that is because you always got to be thinking strategy. So one thing is I never, even then I was thinking I want to buy a property where when I buy it the next day, if all hell broke loose, I could sell it, right? And
Mm,
if I needed to move to California, I could rent it. So even
mm,
when I lived in the single family, I already knew what it was, right?
mm.
So a week after I moved in, right, I moved my cousin and my brother in, both
Yeah,
paying
yeah.
$500 a month.
Mm. So
So
pretty much
so
house hacking. So you've pretty much, even that first property was a rental for you.
yes, yes.
Mm.
And then with the partially finished basement, I could have added another body or put myself in the partially finished basement. And it's really about leveraging because you understand that first property most likely isn't going to be your last or your dream
Hmm.
property.
Yeah,
And really
yeah, yeah.
to leverage the area and square footage that you have with other people because you'll do it in college, you'll
Hmm.
you'll you'll do it with these in other situations with your family, but will you do it to leverage your income?
Mm. That's so smart because when I first moved to Boston from New York, I actually lived with someone in their home, and I paid $500 for a room,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a single brother, and so I just and his brother also lived there, and then he had just renovated the first floor to rent out. It was a 3 bedroom, and he rented it out for $1,500 to a family. And so, and this is not even like this wasn't even structured like a two-family home. This is like a one-family home that he kind of made into a two-family home. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that you were saying that kind of thinking going into it, even your first
Right.
property, which people will think of their primary home, thinking of that as a rental property or how that could be a rental property as well. So I love that idea, and I love that strategic thinking, even going into the process. And so, is that the route that you would recommend most people take, or how would you recommend most people get into
Right.
the rental business?
So I will tell you this. I have a consulting agency called Always Leverage Consulting about real estate.
Mm,
We have a course on House Hackers Elite. That's really like the program that we push, and that idea is that teaching people really like always leverage is like leverage everything, right?
mm,
So one of the things that we know is that most people spend between 35 to 40%, 42% of their income on housing. So the one thing
mm,
that I knew was that I just wasn't like this was 2012. I'm doing this. Like people
mhm.
really wasn't talking about the house hacking like that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But what I knew was my principal, insurance, taxes, and interest. My cost was $642 a month.
Mm,
And by bringing both of these people in, not only was I paying the bills, right, and my
mhm,
utilities that we were splitting, then we were going in, right, to that capacity. And I was like, yo, I now have a little bit of extra too. And
mhm,
I'm living for free. So I'm stacking my own paper, right?
mm.
Because you're disciplined with what
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
putting away. Because I'm still acting like I'm paying the bill. So if I'm putting away, and mind you, I want to give you this. My principal, insurance, taxes, and interest was $642. I was paying
Mhm,
$800 a month to stay in a 1 bedroom on the fourth floor, right?
mm.
And if you know anything
Yeah.
about Springfield, I was on Crystal Ave in Belmont, so I was in the hood.
Yeah.
right? Versus being right off of Breckwood Boulevard, which is
Mhm.
a really nice up and coming neighborhood.
Yeah.
So what I would say is that it don't matter what you have. You have that single family, you have
Mhm.
that multifamily. Leverage them. Now I
Mhm.
moved. Now this is the key, right? I wound up moving my peoples out after a year, and then what was dope was I was able also to save for my wedding.
Mhm.
So then, right now, wifey's at the house, and and now, right, bills are low, so
Mhm.
we're still saving. So then we go ahead and we leverage, right? We leverage her credit and stuff,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
go get that second property, that
Mhm.
FHA, under only her name. The problem
Mm.
that I see sometimes when I'm consulting with people is, yo, I want to be on the deed. I want to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
on the. Both of us are on the loan. Yeah, now both of you cannot get another one,
Hmm. So
right?
can
So
you break that down for folks
okay, so
little
when
bit
you.
more?
Mhm.
Go ahead. Go
So
ahead.
when you get a first time home buyer's loan,
Mhm.
you get one. Kaden, you have one. Like my wife has one. Yo, right? Everybody can get one, right? And
Yeah.
that's a federal loan where you
Mhm.
only have to put down 3.5% based on your credit. Because sometimes if your credit is real bad, like a 580, 600,
Mhm.
it might be 5 to 10% down. But the minimum is 3.5% for anybody over a 640, right?
Mhm.
Credit score, right?
Yeah.
So then at that point, if it's in your name, you can get one. Now, if you're, let's say, for me, right, my wife was living with me at the house. Now we wanted to move. We want to move to Connecticut, and we said,
Mhm.
right, give a reason. We both of our jobs were technically now out of Connecticut. So then
Mhm.
we gave the bank a reason, and the bank said, okay, cool, you can get one under her name and get the next property.
Mm.
Now,
That's not.
there's a lot of gems to that, but like now we move out of my property, and
Mhm.
instantly, because I understand, instantly I'm able to rent my property. I
Mhm.
have a connection with the university, so I could have rented it for like $500-600 a room, make it somewhere between $1,800 to $1,600 a month. But
Mhm.
instead, I wanted a long-term tenant, so I went, put my name in with Section 8, made
Mm.
myself a Section 8 tenant,
Mm.
right? Got with a really good realtor who also like puts people into properties.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
once I did that, she went ahead. I gave her the first month's rent. She paid
Mhm.
her, and she got me a really good tenant that she vetted out that was on
Mhm.
Section 8. 85-90% of her, like she's paying me $150.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah. Yeah.
renting the place for $1,350.
Mm.
So mind you, that's more than double what my
Yeah. Yeah.
mortgage was.
So, can you explain how the Section 8 process works and the pros to getting a renter from Section 8? Because I'll be honest, most of the things that I've heard in the real estate business about Section 8 tenants are usually on the negative side. And so, can you explain the process and then some of the pros to getting a Section 8 tenant? And I know you just mentioned one of them right there, and you can repeat that one so people can kind of really understand
Okay,
what
so
you were saying.
one thing I'll give you is this. I also have acquired some mobile homes, right? And
Hmm.
I've bought and sold. When you think about a trailer park, right? You
Yeah.
think trailer park trash.
Hmm.
That's what you think, right? You think bad, it's yucky, it's right. But we don't root that back to right propaganda that
Mm.
came out in like the '60s about trailer parks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and really the idea is that right towns don't like it because of the tax basis. I'm only
Hmm.
bringing that up because with Section 8, when you talk to landlords who really do Section 8, they love Section 8,
Mm.
especially landlords since March 8th of 2020. And this goes to my pro. Section 8 is recession proof,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? So all my tenants but one is Section 8.
Hmm.
And you know who didn't miss one payment
The
during
Section
the
8.
recession? Me,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And here's the other part, right, which is very interesting, is that one tenant I have who isn't on Section 8 is an older
Hmm.
lady, and the reason why it works for me is because, right, I paid her, I bought the house from her,
Hmm.
so I know she got like in my other property she got like $160,000. So she don't pay me on time; she paid me early,
Mm.
right? Because she right. So
So
that's
it's so
important.
much gems in that, and so I really want to break it down for the people. And so the your tenant who's living in the property right now, you bought the property from her. Can you break
Mhm.
that down for folks in terms of the ideology, the process behind doing that?
So she was so this every time someone sells something, there's always a story. And the reason why I
Mhm,
tell you the story is because I'm always looking for distressed properties.
mhm,
Right? I don't go heavy distress, but I want like right the paint's peeling a little bit, the driveway's a little messed up, the landscaping could be better, right?
mhm, mhm,
But there's always a reason why. And the reason for her was she was an older lady, had a couple of health complications. She bought this house, this two family with a friend of hers who also was having some health stuff. And they
mhm,
wanted to go buy this small one floor, single floor ranch.
mhm,
And what happened was I went to go visit, and when you went to go visit, you talk to people. So
mhm,
that's the other
mhm.
leverage relationships.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Well, hey, this is a beautiful home. Why are you selling it? They start telling you everything.
Mm,
So then now I'm asking things that I want to know their pain point. Let's be honest,
mhm,
right? Because then at that time, right, I understand. Okay, good. I can get this at a good deal, and and then also I can talk to them about negotiating. So what I did was
mm,
I immediately was like, "Oh, you're staying? Oh, great." I was like, "Because I would love to have someone like you next door." I was like,
mhm,
because I was going to live there, owner
mhm,
occupied. And I was like, yeah, I'll shovel this driveway for you. I'll make sure you got a little walkway. I'm like, and don't
mhm.
worry about taking the trash out. I got you. Right. So
Yeah,
now
yeah, yeah.
what am I doing? I'm solving her problems.
Mm,
And then it came down to me and somebody else. And I wrote a letter, right? Hey,
mhm,
would love to have my family living here, X, Y, and Z. And they gave me the property.
mm.
So just giving that fact of having that previous tenant there, right? So
Mhm.
now I know she already she takes care of the property very good. Now the
Yeah, yeah.
con is right because she really loves the property.
Mhm,
Anything that comes up, she wants you to fix,
mm. Yeah.
right? And there's a difference between repairs, which I'm gonna fix
Mhm.
repairs, right? Things that are
Yeah.
broken, I need to fix, and then there's renovations.
Mm.
I want a new stove.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, the toilet's kind of running. Can you just buy me a new toilet? Oh, this is
Mm.
happening. Can no, the electrical plug's not working. Yes, let me go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, this right? Like there's something leaking. There's I'm gonna take care of that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, this there's certainly a difference there. And so I know we're talking about the numbers on some of the properties. And so how much on average someone might expect to make from a rental property? Because in all things, whether it's renting property, investing in the stock market, investing in the crypto, a lot of people usually have high expectations and think they're gonna, and potentially can, depending on the property, make an absolute killing. But can you give some realistic numbers on how much profit someone might make from their first rental property?
Well, one of the things that I teach often is this. Your first rental property, if you're looking to definitely leverage, and you should, right? Leveraging like a first time home buyers, is that you can get a residential loan from
Mhm.
1 to 4 units, right? And in certain states, like say the Connecticut, you could have a business commercial spot downstairs and
Yeah.
have tenants upstairs as
Mm.
long as the square footage upstairs is more than the commercial property. And
Mhm.
I bring that up because if you do that, right, you really can increase how much you're making.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you're talking short term, because we're going to talk right, like there's different ways to look at it. So if I'm looking at the real estate market and I'm saying, well, one part is long term and short term.
Mhm.
So if we're going, if you're a, so one thing we teach with with long term tenants is that first off, you got appreciation, right, of the property that you have. So I'll give you an example. That first house I bought for $98,000, 10 years later, about 4 months ago, I had that property reevaluated. It came back at $200,000. So
Mm.
now you're talking about an appreciation, right, of $102,000 over
Mm.
10 years. If you're talking about cash flow, right? Now, mind you, I've been cash flowing on that property. And when you think about cash flow, and if you're making, let's just hypothetically say at the end of the day, after I paid everything off, I was netting about $500 a month on that property,
Mhm.
right? And if I've been doing that for 10 years, that's $60,000, right? Over
Mm.
10 years I've been making.
Yeah.
But talking about what I'm netting, it might only be, you might only see it as $500 a month.
Mhm.
But when you think about a student loan that you don't have to pay anymore.
Mm.
Because that's what happened to me, right? I had some
Yeah,
student
yeah,
loans, and I was like, "Oh no, we good. It's gonna come out of my credit union, where my tenant pays me."
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So now OPM, other people's money, is paying that student loan, right?
Mm.
Thinking about living in a two family. So when I lived in a two family, right, the rent was about $1,300. The mortgage payment was about $1,475. So I'm paying roughly $200 to live there, but
Mm.
I'm sending my kids to daycare. So
Mm.
daycare is like $1,500-$1,600 a month.
Yeah,
It's like a real rent payment.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
now, right, but now I leverage my living expense and I just pay the daycare now,
Mm.
right? So I'm going back to like how you get paid. You talk about depreciation. When you go do your taxes, they're gonna look at you. You're gonna go to your tax person, and when you have a rental property, you need
Mhm.
to have a CPA. TurboTax is not it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
have a CPA, so you have things written off. So with that, you're gonna go there, and they're gonna look at what you bought the property for, and they're gonna say, "All right, you bought this property for $100,000." They're going to divide that by 27.5, and then they're
Mm.
going to tell you that's how much money that you get off in your taxes, right? So I don't know if it's $3,000-$4,000,
Yeah.
but you get that tax appreciation for even having a property, right? Which is the government just saying thank you for buying property. We're going to
Mm.
right. We're going to now do that. So I'm thinking about those things. I'm thinking about right how when you put money into a property like that and it inflates, right? How you can
Mhm.
hedge inflation itself. So when your cash is sitting in the bank, right, and we have inflation, especially now at an all-time high, if you have it in the market, if you have it in the market or you have it in the real estate, really, right, and that's also going up, which it has gone up a ton right now.
Mm.
Now, right, you're also hedging inflation.
That's good. All right, family. I'm here with Malik Champlain, and we're talking about how to get started in the rental business. If you have any questions at all, let us know in the comment section, and we'll be sure to address them. And as always, go ahead and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm for us. I'm excited about this conference. Oh, just in general, do you feel like it's a good time to get into the real estate market right now? Like as you mentioned, home prices are super high for the most part. Do you feel
Mm-hmm.
like now is a good time? Are you someone that would say for some people to recommend waiting? What are your thoughts there?
Well, it's the same thing I was saying 2 years ago when it started. Well, a year and a half ago when this stuff started going up. It's up and it's stuck. Right?
Mm,
You just keep it in a stack.
mm,
Yes, like it's always a good time to buy real estate, right? People are building, people are buying real estate, but it's how you buy it.
mm.
You have to be a skilled sailor, right? You have to go in and
Yeah.
make sure that you're getting the right information, you're talking with the right people. But at the end of the day, it's really you got to get off market properties if you're thinking about being an investor. You
Mm,
you got to have an investor's mindset when you're going out there and you're buying these properties that are all finished up, right? There's no money,
mm,
right? The money's in the person who's selling the property. You want to look at
mm,
something that, right? When I go and I look at something and like the stairs are a little creaky, the front yard looks a little beat up, high grass, the front of the house is right. There could be some updates in the kitchen and bathroom, things of that nature.
mhm.
You have less people you're fighting against.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know what
yeah,
you
yeah.
don't have? You don't have those people who are paying $30,000-$40,000 more than the
Mm,
ticket price, the evaluation of the property.
mm. So essentially,
Mhm.
is it fair to say that you do not necessarily go after rent-ready properties? Like that's not your target properties when you're looking for something that you can fix up. And I guess my additional question would be then is that do you typically fix the properties to yourself, or do you have a contractor that may be able to fix some of the problems with the property?
Right. So so in one part, I have bought a property, right? That we would say like a buy and hold, right? So I wanted
Mhm,
to put some money into it, and I know that it'll grow, and I can be able to pull that out later. That's a
mhm,
longer term strategy. But the next play is called a burr strategy. So
mhm.
that's what I like now, which is let's buy a property that's at least 30 cents on the dollar, right?
Mm,
So that's 30% less than what the actual value should be on that current property. So for whatever reason, right? There's a tax delinquency, right? Tax lien. Someone's behind the payments. Someone mismanaged. There's a divorce, whatever it is. But whatever reason you have, you're selling the property, right? It's an estate sale, whatever. So then now we're getting at a discount, and you don't get those on Redfin and Zillow, right? Realtors are not giving you those. You might grab something on the MLS, but you got to build your relationships. When you build your relationships with wholesalers and other investors, then that's how you get those properties, unless you want to go out and do direct marketing yourself. But what I'm saying is that when you do that, now you're able to get into the market, right? And then you're able to buy, and then you're able to rehab. Then once you rehab, and being able to rehab is you have to find yourself a good general contractor who can bring in all the subcontractors to fix up the property that you're working on. And once you're able to fix that up, right, you also then have to go ahead and then you have to rent it, and then you refinance. So yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things that you mentioned, and I'm not going to say it on the channel, but made me thought about a property that I may end up consider buying when we get off of this call. When you mentioned distressed properties and the benefit of doing that, but and I'll be honest and say one of the things I was kind of trying to wait for the market to improve in order to buy a rental property. But like you mentioned, distressed properties, especially distressed properties right now, can still be a great buy in this current market. Yes. And I know a property that is distressed, and so that may be something to consider buying right now.
Is it in a good neighborhood or a trending neighborhood?
In a good neighborhood, yeah.
So buying the ugliest house in a good neighborhood is number one, right? It's one of the best things. And then also, right, they say there's about 24 signs of gentrification, right? So buying in an area that's coming up. So when I bought that first property, the area was just coming up, right? It was like on that line. And then now 10 years later, it's like a nicer area. People have fixed up some of the houses. So then everything has gone up. So that's one of the things that you look for. But to your point, buying that property, right? Rehabbing it. Well, I'll tell you this, to buy it, first off, unless you're just going to drop the cash on it, you probably got to go with a hard money lender. So that's somebody who lends you money for the short term, 6 months to 12 months usually. Now they're going to charge you a little higher, probably almost double, right, what a conventional loan will give you. But that holds you to you only got to put up 10 to 20% to get that, minus the repairs. They take care of the repairs, but you have to eventually obviously pay that back when you refi out. Now, mind you, this might not be your first time home buyers course, but you get that. The reason why I say that is because when you buy and hold, your money's in the walls. But when you do a BRRRR strategy, within 6 to 12 months, you get your money back by refinancing. So that 40 grand you put in, you get that back plus probably a little cheese on it. So you got 45, 50 grand coming back to you. And that's making sure your numbers are right.
So, and I think I cut you off with the BRRRR strategy, or part of the BRRRR. So you said buy, renovates, and what was the other R?
Rent, refinance, and then repeat. Because that same money, now you got that 40, which is now 50, and you have a property, right?
And so you're paying off the hard money lender with the refinance money?
Yes, correct. And so now you refinance out into a 30-year. And then now you're cash flowing, right? Maybe let's say $300 to $400 a door.
Yeah.
And now you got the full investment came back to you. So then the biggest thing for us is, right, return ROI, right? Return on investment. And then in real estate, it's cash on cash return. Those are probably the two biggest numbers you're going to ask yourself. Something simple though, when you talk about renting, is that you want to do the 1% rule and the 2% test.
And can you break that down for folks?
Right. So if I go and so when I bought that property, let's say it was 90 days, it's $100,000, right? Boom. I had to make sure, right, that if I was going to rent it, I could rent it for at least $1,000, like the bare minimum. That's the 1% rule. If you can't rent it in that neighborhood for more than $1,000,
for 1% of the value,
correct,
at least 1% of the value.
And then now, if you're talking about guaranteed cash flow, is that if it's at 2% or more. Now, mind you, 1.25, 1.5 based on the neighborhood is still good. But if I was able to get 2,000, that's how you know you have like a cash cow, right? You're like, oh man, that's what it is.
Yeah, yeah,
right?
Yeah, so it has to be between that 1% and 2%, and if it's not, it's probably not a good rental property.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll let you continue. I do want to answer or highlight Bernie's questions. Thanks for saying what's up, Dexter. And thanks for the question, Bernie. So with hard money lenders, you pay them back in full after 6 months to 1 year, right? And question mark. So that's Bernie's question.
Yes. So you will start an LLC, and you can start it right. I mean, I've opened up a ton, so like I can do it within like 20 minutes. But you start an LLC, and then they're looking at the asset base, right? They're looking at it because the great thing about hard money is that they're also going to do their homework on the property when you go to them. So if I say I want to buy 123 Main Street, they're also going to go look at it to make sure it's a good deal, right? Because just in case you mess up, they're gonna take that from up under you, right? Yeah. So now that lien that they have, you're gonna pay them back. So the example would be if $100,000 house. So you might have to
from the hard money lender.
You might need 20% to put up. The hard money lender is going to give you 80 of that. Now let's say the rehab's 30, right? Now the hard money lender is going to put up. You don't have to put any extra money. The hard money lender is going to give you the 30 in draws, right? That means as things are complete, they're going to pay you out the 30. So now you're in for the 30 plus the 80 they gave you. So that's 110. You have to make sure when you go. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the hard money lender is giving you the entire amount for the house, not just the down payment and the refinance amount.
Mm-hmm. So so they give you. So you're putting up 20. Let's say 20% right now is most of them. They're going to only thing you got to give is 20% of what the house is worth. The rehab is on them. That's not part of the down payment. So then now they're going to let's say the contractor comes in, you have your bids, and they say it's 30,000. Now it's the 80 plus the 30. That's 110. So when you go to the bank, right, to refinance out, the bank's only going to give you 70 to 75%. We always bank on 70, sometimes 65 based on the market. But we say the 70% rule. So now you're going to go to that bank, right, and you're going to say the ARV, the after repair value, is let's say $200,000, right? You bought it for 100. You put 30 into it. You owe 110 to the hard money lender. Now the bank's going to refi you that 200. They're going to refi you 140. So now you take 110, pay the hard money lender back. You right, and then you keep the 20 back that you paid, and now you have an extra 30 sitting right there for you. That's in right. Obviously, best case scenario. If the property comes back at 190, 180, it still makes sense. But what we're saying is that making sure that number and knowing the bank is going to say, right, 70 or 75.
Yeah.
Because it's an investment property.
That's good. That's good information to know. And I'll say, makes me feel like, definitely you want to either be working with someone that kind of knows the process before. And I guess my question is, do you guys also take money? Like, do you guys bring on investors with you and things of that nature?
So I love partnerships, but you got to partner with the right people, right? This business, right? Real estate is a big boy business. There's a lot of sharks, right? So when we talk about partnering, you got to make sure your stuff is good and done up front the right way. So so you got to make sure you have your team. So that's why I said CPA. You better have CPA. A skilled real estate investor, right? I don't trust any real estate investor as an investor myself that doesn't have properties himself. Right. So then you gotta make sure, right? Your home inspector, you gotta make sure that your general contractor, right? You gotta make sure you have a team. Now, mind you, you don't have all this at first, but what you can do is make sure you have the realtor, and then make sure that you're doing your homework and you're reading the books that you need to read. So when we're saying that, we're saying being on Bigger Pockets, reading the books on real estate, and having some of the lingo and the understanding, joining your local RIA, right? Real Estate Investors Association, being around people to understand more of the game, maybe getting some coaching, right? So you got that hand to hand, someone can hold your hand through the process. But the biggest reason I say JV is that when you JV with somebody, right, who has experience, make sure you're coming with something they need, right? So let's say like I have experience, and Kaden, I'm saying I know you got some, but let's say you say, yo, Malik, I got $50,000. Let's go grab a property. Let's JV it. You run the play, and then I'll put the 50 up. That's something I'll do. For the most part, now I'm usually the one putting the money up and having someone run the play. But in terms of experience, it's like I'm gonna trade your experience for my money, right? Or I'm gonna trade or I'm gonna trade your sweat equity in getting everything done and showing up, right, for maybe 30% of what we get. And then, right, so when you, or even just your credit, right? Sometimes people, right, they got the money, ain't got the credit. So partnerships are important, but then making sure that, you get your LLP, or you get your, your LLC that you have, and that everything is right on the agreement end of how you get down up front. So then everything else plays out the way it's supposed to.
Awesome. Hey, Nancy, thanks for joining us. I should say, Auntie Nancy. Thanks for joining us. She said, great information. Malik, thank you so much for taking the time to share this information. If you guys have any questions at all, if you're planning, to get into this business, make sure you're asking your questions. We have the man, the myth, the legend, Malik with us. And so I guess, how do you go about identifying a bad tenant? So say like you got most of your ducks in a row, you have the money, you have all of the necessary things for the property. You have your coach, you have your hard money lender, and so now you're looking for tenants, because I would say that you would want to have the tenants potentially in place before it is even time to rent the property, because you don't want the property sitting on the market for too long. And so, how do you go about finding good tenants?
So I'll tell you this: everybody's talking about buying property, but ain't nobody talking about being the landlord. Right? I'm buying all these properties. I got all these doors. Ain't nobody talking about being the landlord. Right? I'm just being real, because at the end of the day, right, a lot of times it's hard to find good property managers, and when you do, you better keep them. You better pay them right. Right? I'm just keeping it in a stack. But I'll tell you this. One thing is, I really push at first being an owner occupied, right? So having the tenants live next door. So like if you have a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex, or something like that, that teaches you the foundation of being a landlord and getting some of the stuff done yourself, and setting the right parameters, right? So like even now, I still continue it, but like I told you, I live next to my tenant, right? I made it very clear, right, when we signed the agreement, and I kind of walked down, hey, this is the account that I want you to put the money into at Bank of America, right? This is the right, and it was just at the local bank, right? This is, so when I get paid, I know I got paid. There's no it's in the mail, right? I'm available from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. via text. Anything after that, you will not get a response from me. The only time I need you calling me is when there's a fire, something's flooding, right? Like, so I had a list of like emergencies. Besides that, you should text me. Why? Because when you text me, I forward your text to my handyman, right? Or I got a list of people already, right? That plumber, electrician. So everybody gets caught up in, right, this idea that I don't do any of those things. Right? I don't do any of it, right? Because you have to manage your money, right? So getting to that point right now, getting to the idea of a good or a bad tenant, you got to do your homework. So you know how in business they say slow to hire, quick to fire. Right? So I'm gonna be very honest, right? You gotta be slow to bring people in your property, but what happens is we get desperate. We buy that property and we're like, oh, I can't. You haven't financially been set enough, right? You house rich and cash poor. Don't do that to yourself, right? Make sure you have 2 or 3 months to take your time, right? And then the other part is, but you don't have time. And that's the biggest thing. I'm big on what I teach my clients is passive, right? Passively being able to manage up to 4 properties. And the way that you can do that is through your systems, right? Like I said, I'm not receiving phone calls. So I don't, and then also that teaches people how to treat you. That I'm not, these little things are not my emergency. I'm going to get to them.
Yeah.
right? And then I have a system of the workflow of who deals with what. But
Mm.
when you go, this is where when I have like I have a tenant a client recently, he didn't want to do a background check. He was too hungry, right? So then now he didn't know that they had prior evictions. He didn't know. You got to ask yourself, right? Based on right, especially if they live next door to you or even on your property. Based on what convictions do you want them living there? But then also looking at you this is your fourth time around. Like you like to just jump out on leases. That's not what it is. Or you like to stay longer than you're supposed to. You look at that. The other thing is if you're not on Section 8, I'm really looking at it being like, look, I say it a lot. That person needs to have at least 2 jobs. That person, whoever it is, they need to make sure that they can functionally, right? Like how much money they gross, that they can pay the rent 3 times over. If they can't, right, then you playing with fire. And don't be surprised when you get burned. Having a reference, right? And being able to back that reference up because they're going to give you a cousin. You're going to call, it's going to be like their cousin. They're going to hear the kids in the background. And they got some story for you, right? Everybody got a story. But what you find is that as you really go through and you really vet out, man, some of I've been getting some of the best tenants by just going. Like I got this one lady now who she does all the vetting for me. And then she just sends me the information and goes, I got 3 really good people. I want you to pick one.
Yeah.
For me, I love that.
No, and that's what I would want and love too as a landlord. I don't really want to be in the mud with any tenants. And I see some of the things on social media about how some tenants are, and like you said, and that happens oftentimes that people get desperate to lend to anyone. Dexter does have a question, and I know we're coming close to time. But Dexter asks, what's the difference between a rental home and a home you own? And I'm not 100% sure the point, but I don't know if you kind of understand what he's trying to say.
Right. If you talking to me, the issue is that, right? Like I said, my organization, my company is always leverage consulting. So I leverage everything. But to your point, if you're talking about like an investment property versus like your personal residence, the way that I teach it is that when you get a first time home buyers, it's not designed like, hey, the government's not going to say we want you to use this to make money, but you can decide to do that, right? And with residential loans. Now, if you're talking about getting into like a commercial loan is 5 units or more. Right. So if you get a 6-unit property, that's commercial, and there's different regulations, restrictions, some less, some easier, but also there's other headaches that come with it. But I will add this to the part about being the landlord is that outside of the systems and all these other things about being so smart, right? But you got to be legally smart. You got to know tenant law, fair housing, right? Because you can't show certain favoritism. Is that I go by the motto that you must love people. So when March of 2020 hit, right, I was already good with my tenants, but like I was extra good with my tenants, right? Hey, that stove you wanted, let's go get you that stove. That rug you want me to pull and do the hardwood, let's go do the rug, right? That appliance or that, right? You know what, matter of fact, this summer, don't worry about cutting the grass at the single family house. I'm gonna have someone come out and they're gonna cut it every 10 days for you. So now, right, I'm the best landlord in the world. And you know what you do with the best landlord in the world? You pay him. So I go by this idea that when you start to know your people, you get to know them, right, enough, and you have some relationships with them. But you hold a line, but you have relationships when you understand what they need. And that helped me so far, right, the last 2 years during this pandemic.
That's awesome. And thanks for that comment, Bernie. And so we're going to wrap things up. Malik, thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Dexter, Bernie, Kelvin, Auntie Nancy, and everyone that has joined us live for this conversation. I guess any final thoughts as we end the live for the folks, Malik?
I would say this, right? I think some of what we got into this was like people who are first jumping in. The one thing that I have people do is I have them look at I call it the big 4 plus 5, right? Which is the FHA, your regular FHA, but there's the FHA 203K, right? I just did something on that. That's a secret to killing equity and getting a ton of equity in your home, and that's a FHA loan with a repair loan, right? A reconstruction loan. So then you have that still only putting down 3.5% for both. Then you have your USDA loan. So when you look at places like Boston and stuff like that, that's inner city, right? That's urban. But when you go out, there's these towns where you can pay sometimes 0% down to get the property, or they give you a 38-year loan, right? They really help you out, right? And they kind of favor people almost who are struggling not struggling, but like who are lower income. So, and then lastly, right, for my people who serve, that VA loan, that's 0% down, right? That you can just keep getting them and banging them over the head with, right? You serve their country, you deserve it. So that's the big four, right? We talk about federal, and then you have it's a nonprofit, but people get into it. It's called NACA. I'm gonna do something on that coming up, but NACA is a beast. But with NACA and the rest of them, it's the red tape. If you don't have your ducks in a row, if you don't have your ducks in a row,
I think you usually have to occupy the home too, right?
Well, all of them you have to occupy the home. So I really push right to get into your first one is that 3.5% leveraging, right? What other business would you put 3.5% and they give you 96.5?
Yeah.
Right.
I think NACA a lot of times so we had a NACA came and do a program at a church, the first time home buyers program. And I think they said they even help with give the entire down payments in addition to the only having to pay 3.5% down. They sometimes give you the down payment for completing the class and things
so
like
NACA
that.
is zero. So when you go to their program, you get a house with 0% down. Now, you can get a 4-family for 0% down. And here's the thing, right? Is that right? Just like FHA and all of them, you if you buy in the right area, a year or 2 years later, you can refi out of it, and you're not in it, right? NACA, you're done. But the other ones, like FHA, at 3 years later, you can get another one once you refi out. So just looking at those, right, as stuff that really helps you. But then that's the national. But look at your state, right? When I moved into Connecticut, I went to the Connecticut Housing Authority, and they had a program where I also got my down payment and my closing costs paid for, right? Because I went to some classes, did a program for them. But the state has a lot of programs because they want people buying homes. And then look at your local municipality. A lot of these cities, like Hartford, has something where they were giving you like $7,000 towards your closing, and like these different areas leverage those government, local, and state grants and loan processes.
No, that's awesome. And I know what you're saying, but just to add some clarity, when you say refinance out of the FHA loans, can you just break that down a little more for folks?
So, I'll give you an example. So for me, I did because they were so fast, I did Rocket Mortgage, right? So my first property, that being one that was like a FHA, right? What happens is that you're supposed to technically pay 20% to get a house, right? Off rip. The government says, right, hey, because you're getting that money from a lender. Let's say it's the lender is Wells Fargo. You're getting that money from a lender. The government's saying, I'm going to back this money up, right? To say that, you know what, this person qualifies for a loan through our program, and they only had to put 3.5% down. And I'm going to guarantee if they default that you still get your money, right? So when they do that, right, they hold you to this idea that you have to live at the residence because you only put that money down. And that's your primary residence. What happens is that then for the FHA 2 or 3K, right, it's 1 year you have to live there for. Sometimes it's 3 or 4, but you live there for the duration when you're supposed to. And then you go to another bank and you get a conventional loan, where they're going to then say either 20 or 30%, 20 or 25% down. Sometimes 30, right? Based on the type of property. You're going to get another bank to buy you out under their loan. So when I went to Rocket Mortgage, they bought me out of my Webster Bank loan. Right? I only owed $75,000 on the property. They gave me a loan for $140,000. I paid Webster Bank to $75,000. I cashed out the rest for me, right? And then we went ahead and got this now 140 that my tenants are paying down. And here's the thing:
On the new FHA loan.
On a conventional loan, so no more FHA, right? So I got them to pay me. So I give you that house was worth now 200,000. Remember, I bought it for 98. It's worth 200K. They're going to give you 70% because it's an investment property. 70% of 200,000 is 40. It's 140. They're only going to take what you owe in the property. So my tenants paid it down to $75,000. So now I took that 75. That's the way I owe Webster Bank. Rocket Mortgage paid them off and then wired me the rest, right? So when they wired me the $65,000, that went into my account. So that's how you can make income, right, on the property. And now you're out of an FHA loan. So in 3 years from now, I can go get an FHA loan. But I bought right. Now, what I'll tell you, though, is that how important it is that you buy right when you're doing this, but then also that you understand, right, this understanding the red tape that goes into any of these processes.
Yeah, so no, there's certainly a lot to learn. And one of the beautiful things about it is like you can really honestly get your first rental property for free by using some of these strategies. And I think that's one of the things that people really have to keep in mind, because people have the idea that they need X amount of funds in order to get your first property, to get your first rental property, and things like that. And using some of these strategies, you really do not. I just want to say what's up to Reigning Woman. If I'm pronouncing that woman part right, let me know in the comment section if I'm not. But thank you so much for that super chat of $5. All love, and yes, peace to you and all your folks too.
So Kate, with that, I'll give you this. I know we got to go, but I'll give y'all this. I bought a duplex, and my duplex, right? And I got people to like sign into this live because I said how my duplex made me $1 million. But when you look at these numbers that you make from the property, when you talk about cash flow, other people's money, when you talk about the tax benefit, when you talk about equity that's built, when you talk about inflation of the property and how it appraises, my $200,000 duplex, right, over 30 years, actually, being honest, is going to make you about $1.2 million, right, all together in savings and earned income.
Maybe it would be nice to come back and do a quick show on that one, maybe like a 30-minute show just on how my duplex made me $1 million. I'm sure.
But here's the other bar, right? What happens if I took the $500 that I got for 30 years and I put it into the market, and I got an 8% return for 30 years? That's another million. Yeah. That's another mil. That's another mil. That's another mil.
And that's how you have to be thinking. That's how you have to be thinking to build wealth. And so, Malik, thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge with us today. And like I said, for those that are looking to get into the real estate market to buy your first home, don't let anyone tell you can't, and don't let yourself, be the person to hold you back. Wherever you are in life, there are so many programs, whether you have money or you don't have money, there's so many programs that can allow you to buy homes and for relatively cheap. As a homeowner myself, I can tell you that it is cheaper to own. It is cheaper to own, especially with the ability to refinance and lower your mortgage rate. And I think that's one of the biggest blessings that we've had as homeowners, because when you rent, your mortgage your rent is probably going to go up every single year. Most people aren't in subsidized housing, they aren't in rent stabilized housing, and your rent can go up every year. But when you own, there are so many strategies in order to decrease your rent or build wealth through your home. And so let this be a wake-up call to look into how you can go about either getting your first rental property or getting your first home, and potentially that you can also either one day turn into a rental property house hack into a rental property, like many of the things that Malik shared. Um, Go ahead, Malik. I see you got some on your mind.
No, I just like for those people who are buying their first home, right? And I know we've been talking really about like making money, but if you're buying your first home, even your rental property, you'll really do your due diligence when you're looking at these properties. Make sure people got the permits, right? When you see additions or you see like a finished basement, a lot of times these people ain't doing that, and then when you go to sell it, it gotta get gutted, right? So that's something that you want to make sure. Make sure, right? People don't know about radon, right? Radon in the air, radon in your water, that can get expensive. Asbestos, mold, they mess with your respiratory, lead, that can mess with your kids, right? So those are real things, especially as a landlord, that can get you sued, right? If you didn't do your due diligence and don't really understand that, or you got to pay a lot of money to get those things upgraded and up to code. I wanted to share that. And to your point, when the pandemic actually first hit, all the prices dropped. And I took one of my properties had a 3.87% interest rate. It was FHA. I did an FHA streamline, which has way less costs. It cost me maybe under $2,000 to do it, where I went down to a 2.6. That saved me, at the end of the day, it saved me about $200 a month, right? And what I paid in that property, that's $200 back into cash flow. And then my last thing, because I know, like I said, I keep saying we got to go, but when you talk about refinancing, right? Never sell grandma's house, right? So we're talking right now about, right? We had to focus on sustainable wealth, transitional wealth, right? How can we transition it enough where we're good, where we can then be good for our kids? How can we get that then to passing it down to generational wealth? But when I say never sell grandma's house, it's about regenerational wealth. It's about teaching this blueprint to the next generation. When you teach it to them, right? Now, don't give them 100 fish. They're going to eat through it eventually, right? But if I show you exactly where to fish and how to fish and to come at night and to use this bait, right? Now that's regenerational wealth. And when you have regenerational wealth, you understand never sell grandma's house, because when I refinanced that house and got the 65K, it's going to be about 15 years from now, 12 years from now, I'm going to do it again. And then I'm going to do it again. And then that fourth time, hopefully I'm still around, but then I'm going to teach my daughter how to do the same. By that time, my property has done doubled or tripled in price. And I'm going to teach my daughter, my firstborn, how to do the same. And then I'm going to take another property and I'm going to teach my secondborn how to do the same. I'm going to teach my son, my third. Don't sell. Pull it out and have other people pay it down.
I love that. And so there are so many gems to this wealth building games, and so many ways to do it. And so, Malik, again, thank you so much for sharing all of that. Bernie says yes, 100%. Never sell grandma's house. Thank you to the Reigning Woman. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And like I always say, God bless y'all. May God prosper y'all and continue to live your best life.